let's get to this. Ready? Okay, let's do this. Hello, people. Me again. Another beautiful day or night. It's about 6:59 on the dot, 7 o'clock. Another beautiful day, yeah, or night. Hope your five senses work. Hope your health and strength is good. What? What's up, gamers? Okay, to you Atari VCS lovers, we got some news for you. I think the Atari VCS has come to a close. Listen to this. Atari suspend VCS manufacturing contracts, likely signaling the end of its short life. Atari VCS could be headed for an early grave. Says here, Atari says RIP. Atari grand comeback has seemingly hit a major roadblock as the company announced the suspension of direct hardware manufacturing relationship in its most recent earning report dated December 16th. The company didn't mention any alternative partnership, meaning the VCS could be headed for an early grave. Says the Atari return to grand stage of gaming was always a long shot, but one the company was willing to take. It started teasing a new game console initially, known as the Atari Box, in mid-2017, and many at the time thought it would be little more than a retro mini console like the NES Classic Edition. Then it says in parentheses, in hindsight, that's probably all it should have been. Says here, the Atari Box eventually, because the Atari VCS, and we did learn it was much more than a mini console preloaded with classic games. The system would pack a custom AMD processor with Radeon graphics and ship with up to 8 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigs of eMMC storage. Kind of like the Steam Deck. Steam Deck has 64. 8 gig of RAM, that's more powerful than the Wii U. And the Switch. Because the Wii U has 2, the Switch has 4, and the VCS has 8. Anyway, says here, pre-orders were set to an open at the end of 2017, but got pushed back to May of 2018 through Indigo. Things seemed promising at first, despite the $199 starting price, but then more delays came. A promised 2019 window came and went, delay number 1. Then the pandemic gave Atari another reason to delay in 2020. They probably didn't know how to deal with that situation. Then it says here, ultimately the first unit wouldn't make it out to early backers until the very end of 2020. Retail availability would occur until halfway through 2021. But by that point, did anybody really care? Yep, pandemic. Says here, Atari in its latest financial report said earning for the first half of the year ending September 30th, 2022 end with 4.3 million. I think that's 4.3 or 64.3 million. That word is crossed out. And it says in parentheses 4.6, says down 27% compared to the same period last year. Worse yet, revenues from hardware sales dipped a whopping 92%. Yeah, the pandemic did its damage. Then it says here, from 2.3 million to 0.2 million during the same time frame. Says for what it's worth, the base console has been slashed from $199.99 to $159.99. Over on Atari's site, optionally you can nab a bundle that comes with the speaker hat for $303.99. At this point, the Lego Atari 2600 kit seems like the better buy. And we got 7 comments here. Let's see what they say. One person here says, Atari just royally screwed this pooch. Late launch for too high price for what a basic fancy emulation box, alternating their backers and alienating their backers and the designers of the hardware itself, and just well, no long-term plan for this thing. They would have been far better shipping an open platform with basic AMD hardware set and opening the system for modding and open emulation instead of whatever bizarre hybrid approach they took here. One person here says, buy a few of them and stick them in the loft for 20 years. They will be worth the money, I guarantee it. Another person here says, I was thinking of getting one with their holiday sale, but guess not now. Another person here says, there's not as much money in 35 through 40-year-old games as Atari thought. Another person here says, I might have bought one if it weren't so expensive, and basically a glorified emulation box. Next person here says, yes, put them next to your beanie babies and USB thumbsticks with all your cryptocurrency on it. You will be super rich. Man, they funny. Another person here says, if these Atari goons actually had a working brain, they would have made this thing much smaller. Palm size maybe, using something like a Raspberry Pi under the hood with custom software / emulation. It would have been much cheaper to produce and probably higher margin on sale too, but no, they had to go with pointless, overpowered, and overpriced hardware. Custom AMD CPU for an Atari emulator. Get real. Then he says, I have been playing video games since the late 80s, and I would never buy one of these classic remakes for anything above 50 bucks. Once you start asking for 99 or as high as 199 for some novelty / nostalgia item like this, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. And then another person here says, 3 Vega Qs has never been overpowered. Well, look, they tried, and they weren't prepared for the pandemic. The pandemic was about, in video games terms, the pandemic was about infrastructure. You know, who had the infrastructure, who had the network to weather the storm, to survive it. When I say infrastructure, I'm talking about who had their e-shops available to buy games when disasters strike. Remember when I was telling you about the Wii U and the Virtual Console, what it's really for? I mean, what it's really for? That's what I mean. So the pandemic was really about infrastructure and who had the infrastructure to weather the storm. Remember, stores were closed. And the only ways to get your games were digitally. So that played a huge part in Atari trying to make a comeback in this video game business. You know, it didn't go so well. You know, they tried, and you know, it got delayed. It got delayed so many times. So then on top of that, they probably weren't prepared for the pandemic too. So that's another thing. You know, and they just saw that as an opportunity to be like, you know what, let's cut ties with this thing. And once you drop a whopping 92%, a whopping 92%. It's time to rethink your strategies and probably try again, or just go a different route, or call it quits. You know, so you could say they released that in the wrong time frame, But then again, Valve, Valve released the Steam Deck in the pandemic, and saw it all the way through. I just think Valve was more prepared than Atari was when it came to the Steam Deck. So, more prepared than Atari with the VCS. Valve was more prepared. But to me, I don't think Atari was ready for that, because once the pandemic came, was at its height, at its highest peak. It was about infrastructure now. Okay, stores were closing, so you gotta get your stuff digitally, and also the pandemic was about who was buying a lot of, who was saving up their foods and their groceries to weather the storm. If you couldn't, just imagine if you couldn't go to the grocery store and buy some food. Yeah, whoever had freezers and deep freeze in their residence could weather the storm, because they probably got a lot of frozen chicken and fish and whatever they can cook. But you know what I'm saying? So the pandemic was about infrastructure. Who had it? And a lot of businesses got affected. They went out. Because look, I went to right after the pandemic kind of died down a little. I went to San Francisco and I was walking the streets of Market. And I was looking at all the businesses that were open and the ones that used to be there, and now they're gone. So pandemic really put a dent into the economy, and it's about infrastructure. Whoever had it, can survive it. Who didn't, it was time to go. Or the pandemic provided a way for those businesses that was in business for like 50, 60 years, and they wanted a way out, and that was their way out. So it was really about who had the infrastructure. So Atari probably wasn't prepared. They probably did it at the wrong time. Then on top of that, they could have released their games, like in like on Steam, Xbox, probably on the 360 store, Xbox One store, Xbox Series X and S. They probably could release them with PlayStation on the PlayStation 3 store, PlayStation 4, or even PlayStation 5. And they could have released their games like on Nintendo's Wii U eShop and the Switch. Look at Sega. Sega has games in the Wii U eShop, has games on the PlayStation 3, has games on Xbox 360 and Xbox One, and I have games on probably, and even on Steam. So maybe Atari should have went that route, and that would probably would have saved him some headaches, But once they got hit with delays, and then the pandemic kicks in. Yeah, that was like the nail in the, what they say, in the head, so to speak. So yeah, but they tried, they tried, but they still can put their games on those stores, whether it's Steam, Nintendo, Sony, PlayStation, or Xbox, and make their money that way, and go that route. But they tried. But for what this thing was coming with, this thing was more powerful than the let's see, it had more RAM than the PS3, had more RAM than the Switch, has more RAM than the Wii U. It's right up there with the PS4. So yeah, they tried, they tried. But based on the comments, maybe they shouldn't have never raised the price that high, But they tried. Pandemic put a dent into that plan. Yeah, a lot of businesses got affected by that thing, a lot. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this article with this video. Let me know what y'all think. Anyway, nice talking to you people again. Chris, still a Star Wars and Star Trek thing. Poor Dark Side. Go.